Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kate, I make videos about books and bookish things, and today we're gonna get rid of some books. I mean, it's kind of funny to go from, in my most recent video, being like, oh yeah, I really wanna, get back into reading, do more with books, and I'm now sitting here like, right, time to get rid of as many things on my shelf as possible, but in my mind, this is part of the process of getting back into reading, is making sure that my shelves are full only of things that I want to be reading and that don't feel too young for me. I'm also going through a massive general room clear out at the moment, so at some point it was gonna be this lot's turn. I just went to both of my bookshelves and cleared them of absolutely everything on them, so what you see currently surrounding me is all of the books from my bookshelf in the corner, not the one that I film in front of. That's that one. We'll be coming to her later, but it's time to start with these ones. This has already been an hours-long process because I needed to get everything off of the shelves in the first place, and that was so tiring for my poor, feeble little body that I then had to go and have a sit-down afterwards before I could actually come, set these stacks up, set my tripod up, and actually prepare to do the hard work of going through them all. I took everything off the shelves because normally when I go through my books, it is letting them reside in their comfortable position of getting that space on the shelf, whereas like this, I will have to go through considerable effort to put them back on the shelves afterwards. I'm just now thinking of the fact that all of these books I have around me are gonna have to go back on the shelves at some point, dear God. By doing this, I will hopefully be more cutthroat. I'm gonna have a keep pile, I'm gonna have a get rid of pile, and I will also have a sort of double check pile. So, let's get started with the books on the very top of my first bookshelf, which is a much more reasonable looking stack than I had hidden behind the others. Just this. So, first of all, 1000 facts about animals. I think it is safe to say that I'm beyond the point in my life at which I'm consulting books like this on the regular. Goodbye. Find on portraits. This is just a bunch of pictures of people's faces, normally from countries that we colonised. I don't need this anymore. I used to use it as a writing exercise. I would look at a picture of a person and come up with a story based on them. However, no thanks. I'm done here. Usborne Beginner's Book of Cats. I am actually going to keep this one because it was in fact a gift from my preschool when I moved on to primary school to say good luck and well done, so this one gets kept, if only for sentimental reasons. So congratulations, Usborne Beginner's Cats, you are the first, what's the opposite of a victim? A winner. You are our first winner. This is already melting my brain and we're 3 books in. And a guide to garden wildlife. This was definitely a gift from my grandpa at some point. Again, I'm kind of beyond the point at which I consult guides like this. I've got Google these days. If I don't know what a beetle is, goodbye. Here we go. These are the stacks of books that I am likely to actually keep some things from. I'm going to pop you here. Right. First of all, Vicious by V.E. Schwab. 100% keeping because I love it and also I want to read the sequel, so that is an unambiguous definite keep. These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, again, definite keep because I absolutely adored this, and also I have the sequel, Our Violent Ends, and my beloved friend Alfie that I buddy read this with last year. We have agreed we're going to buddy read the sequel as well, so I'm going to do a reread of it, get to the sequel, read that with Alfie, and probably suffer extreme emotion as a result of it. You are staying. If We Were Villains by ML Rio. You know I love this. I made a highly controversial video in which I said this is better than The Secret History. Of course it is staying. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Ooh, I'm thinking about this actually, because as much as I think I would like to read it again at some point, I don't know how long that's gonna be. And it's not a favourite. I'd say this is like maximum a 4-star. Like, do I feel and think a lot of things when I read this? Yes. Are they all good thoughts and feelings? No. Ooh, first maybe. Actually, no, I'm not going to maybe it, because I know the conclusion I'm going to end up coming to is keeping it. You win another round, Donna Tartt. Deep Light by Frances Hardinge. This is such a good book. It is definitely staying. I've managed to convince multiple of my friends to read this subsequently as well, so she's a keeper. Face Like Glass, which is my favourite Frances Hardinge book until I read Deep Light. Definitely staying. That was a slightly less successful pile in terms of getting rid of things, but I feel good about it because all of those books are ones that I know for a fact I adore. That's a win because it means I'm going to end up with a shelf that is just full of absolute bangers. Time for the other part of that shelf. First book on the top is Centuries of Stories, which is a collection of short stories that I was given a very, very long time ago. Do I have an urge to reread? No. So goodbye. The Usborne Little Book of Fairy Stories. This gets the status of nostalgia. Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. This was read to me as a kid and then I never read it again. I've forgotten about this one. You goodbye. Pippi in the South Seas by Astrid Lindgren. I really, really like The Tales of Pippi Longstocking. It's such a good book. This one though, I did read at some point, however, I have never felt the same urge to go back to it as the first book, so goodbye. Words in Deep Blue by Kath Crowley. This is one of my favourite books ever. Definitely staying. Yes, No, Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. This was really, really good when I read it a year or two back. I have not felt the same urge to reread it since, but because I know I loved it so much, it is definitely one I will want to reread with an eye to still enjoying it as opposed to reaffirm whether or not I want to get rid of it. So this one stays. Wonderland by Juno Dawson. I absolutely adored this when I read it a couple of years ago. Definitely want to reread. In fact, I'm probably due for one very, very soon, so she's staying. One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. I really enjoyed this when I read it. Has it stayed on my mind massively since? Can't say it has, but I would very much like a reread of it, and I enjoyed it enough that it's not one that I would prolong that for keeping. Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I really, really enjoyed this when I read it for the Sunshine Readathon a year or two back, and I would definitely love a reread of it eventually. Maybe not a priority, but something I know I will get to again. The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Absolutely loved it when I read it last year, so a definite stay. I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. It's an Alice Oseman book. Was this one of my favourites? No. Did I really like it though? Yes, absolutely. She stays. The Truth About Keeping Secrets by Savannah Brown. I read this shortly after it first came out and I seem to remember enjoying it. However, I had forgotten I owned this book, frankly, and so I think that is a fairly good sign that it's not worth hanging on to. The Psychology of Time Travel by Kate Mascarenhas? I have no idea how to... that name. That one. This was a gift from one of my lovely sixth form friends and I was absolutely intrigued by this when I read it. However, I found it quite difficult to understand. Maybe it's just because I'm not all that science-minded, can you tell? But I did struggle a bit with it, and I will be honest, I don't think it's something I'm going to find much of an urge to come back to, so I think this is one where I say goodbye. Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. I really, really liked this. I don't know though, because I very rarely think about it, nor do I especially get the urge to reread it, so... maybe pile, I'm not strong enough. The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson. This was one of my favourite books when I was sort of mid-teen years. However, I haven't read it in a really long time, and also very interesting, this is a story with two trans protagonists that was written in, when was it? 2015. Obviously the landscape for trans people has changed a lot since then, so I definitely want to reread this, if only to see how much we have progressed. Because this is not written by a trans author, so I'd be really interested to see what this is like to read these days. And there we get None of the Above by I.W. Gregorio. This was a really interesting book about an intersex woman. However, do I think I'm ever going to reread this? No. Was it interesting? Yes. Was the writing particularly strong? No. So, goodbye, unfortunately. Oh my god. Now we have my stack of 3 Eva Ibbotson books. Who else read all the Eva Ibbotson books when they were a child? I think we can get rid of that one for definite, because it wasn't my personal favourite. Star of Kazan, I'm pretty sure, was my favourite when I was a kid. These two, I think, are also maybe pile ones on the basis that they were really special to me when I was younger, but I don't know if I have the same urge to reread them now. And then we have The Talking Parcel by Gerald Durrell, which is a now out of print kids fiction story by Gerald Durrell, who was a very famous conservationist and explorer. I guess he was also an author, although he decried his own authorship and basically said, I never wanted to be an author, I just did it to help, you know, my conservation efforts, which Good on him. However, he is a fantastic writer, and it was my mum's favourite book as a child and then became mine. And as I say, it's out of print. I'm never going to find another copy anywhere else, and it's got family ties, so this absolutely 100% stays. Okay, This Lie Will Kill You by Chelsea Pitcher. I read another Chelsea Pitcher book not super long ago that was really, really shit, and this one did not do enough, frankly, to justify getting a reread, so goodbye. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I did not escape the hype that this book got. However, I can comfortably say, as you can tell by the cover I've got, I got this shortly after its publication, so I've been a fan since the very, very beginning. It now is getting peely around the corners and things like that because I've read it so many times. It's an absolutely fantastic book. If you have managed to escape the advertising for it thus far by the entire bookish community, definitely staying, as is the sequel, Crooked Kingdom. Remembrance by Teresa Breslin. This was something I picked up from my school library when I was in secondary school, I believe, and I enjoyed it at the time. However, that probably made me maximum like 15 or 16, and I have not thought about it since, so goodbye. Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. I read this again for the first time after a very long break only a year or two back and realised that I had been sleeping on this massively, so she slays and she stays. Now we get to my Emma Carroll books. Emma Carroll was an author I really, really liked in my like middle teen years, but oh my god, I have not touched these in such a long time, to the point where I'm now kind of going, they're probably too young for me. The Girl Who Walked on Air was really, really special to me, and I'm pretty sure I got it signed. Yep, there we go. This one, definitely going. I don't remember it well enough. Strange start, I'm not gonna lie, if I was going to encounter the lives of the romantic poets again, it would not be in this form, so I think you are also gonna go. Just opening it briefly and going, the size of that font. I miss when books were that easy. She's gotta stay. She's gotta stay. It's signed as well, I can't not. Then the bottom of this pile is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I do not like this book. Every single time I've read it, I've gone, I didn't like that, but I kept it because I thought I ought to like it. I'm not gonna want to reread this, am I? Goodbye. I'm sorry. I have my collection of the Mallory Towers books by Enid Blyton. They are definitely staying. I love these so much. And now we get to my big collection of R.J. Anderson fairy stories. I read these recently enough that I can remember that I liked them, so I'm definitely going to keep them. However, these I did not get to when I did my reread because I kind of got burnt out with the series after 3 books to then do the spin-off. But from what I remember, I liked these even more. It's just been such a long time, so I'm gonna hang on to them. I'll give them another shot at some point. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is an absolutely phenomenal book. However, I don't know if I'm ever gonna reread it, unfortunately. This was one of those books that was just so good that I'm like, I got all I needed to from this. This would be like a headhunting one to keep, to be like, yeah, I read this. But I don't think about it all that often, so unfortunately for an excellent book that I only read one time, I think I'm gonna say goodbye to it. Oh. Same with Cinderella is Dead! Oh my god, this was the first book review I did for my channel, because I thought it was really good. It's just not, it doesn't stand out, you know? Would still recommend, but I'm not hanging on to. Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow is one of my favourite books, like, ever. So it is 100% being kept. Demisexual, demi-romantic aliens. And humans, but also aliens. Please read it. Oh, my hair. Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. Again, another really, really excellent book that I'm just not going to read again because this was harrowing. Red Clocks by Leni Zumas. I actually borrowed a copy from my friend V when I read this, so this copy is unread. However, I have read the book before. Ooh. I very much do want to come back to this at some point, but again, this was quite a brutal book. I think this is a maybe pile. Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. You can see how much I love this book by how bleached the spine has gotten. Fantastic book. I love this. I will continue to reread until the end of time. Silence is Goldfish by Annabelle Pitcher, not to be confused with Chelsea Pitcher. Firstly, fish on the sprayed edges. Are you kidding me? However, this is one that I've been telling myself I was going to reread for years because this is like classic YA girls fiction. But I've never really felt the urge to. That's the thing, I've been telling myself to for years and just never actually done it. Maybe pile, getting maybeed. Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, obviously keeping. I've actually only read it once, but I desperately want to reread it because it is just a fantastic book. Alid, demisexual representation again. Francis, sad smart girl representation. All very important. And then Loveless, you know I'm keeping this. I could never get rid of it, not least because my copy is now signed. So I'm also wearing my Loveless Pride shirt, if you didn't notice while I was unstacking my shelves. Heidi by Joanna Spiri, you know who. It's Heidi, everyone knows Heidi. Read this when I was a kid, really liked it. Am I ever going to read it again? No. Then we get to The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. Again, this is a really good book. I really enjoyed it when I read it. I've intended to reread it for a really long time, but considering how much more I love Frances Hardinge's other books, this is never going to get touched again. I've done really well. My stack of books to go and my stack of books to keep feel like they're the correct proportions. One more pile of books to get through, and then we've got my collection of poetry, which I don't think I've ever actually talked about on my channel. First of all, we have Highly Illogical Behaviour by John Corey Whaley. This is one I read a handful of times as a teenager because it actually talked about someone with an anxiety disorder. Guess who also has an anxiety disorder? Does it show ever in anything to do with myself? Also, it was gay, and this was one of the first gay books I read. Then I turned out queer. I'm not going to read this again. I forget I own this, frankly, so you served me well, but goodbye. Magical Mail by Claire Barker. I believe this is no longer in print and that it was initially self-published or very, very similar. This is signed because the wonderful Claire Barker came and gave a talk at my school when I was like 8 or 9 years old to talk about this book, but also to talk about being an illustrator and an author, and it fundamentally changed the course of my existence. This was such a formative experience for me. I really do now want to reread this and see just how much this has influenced my subsequent reading and writing, but yes, a definite keep, if only for nostalgia purposes, but oh my god, the nostalgia it holds. An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. This was a really, really good book I read last year. One read was enough. Goodbye, my beloved. Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. I read this because Paperback Dreams recommended it many, many years ago, and it was very good. I really enjoyed it. I would very much like to come to this again, not least because it is a slightly... It's very Dead Poets Society feeling. It's got a lot of emotions in it. I would love to come to this again, so you are a keep. Now we have this stack that's been just out of your view the entire time, but this is all my Ruby Redfords. There is no way in hell I'm ever getting rid of them. I absolutely love Ruby Redford. I do, however, also have Hang In There, Bozo, which was the World Book Day special survival guide done in the very sarcastic style of Ruby Redford. I think I'm still going to keep this as well for the nostalgia factor, but yeah. Ruby Redford, you would never be leaving me. I love you too much for that. First of all, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is the 3 books on that shelf that are not, in fact, poetry. First of all is the comic Woman World by Amanda Dhaliwal. Really, really good. I very much enjoyed reading this when I got it. However, do I ever feel the need to reread this? No. So unfortunately, I think this one is to go. The next book that is not poetry on that shelf is Dodie's Secrets for the Mad. She said it herself, this is a shit book because it is a book of life advice that she wrote when she was 21 or 22. Point being, she was very, very young, and as a now very young woman myself, I know full well that I could not write a book giving any sort of advice. However, I do have a lot of nostalgia for it because Dodie was such a formative part of my teenage years, so I think I am going to keep this. Here's the other book. I'm way too old for this now. Now you know my dark backstory. I was a Dan and Phil girly. I don't need this anymore. I'm past that point in my life. Now we've gotten those out of the way, it's time to do some poetry. I find it very unlikely I'm going to get rid of any of these. These are all the poetry books that I have read, but I will show them to you anyway. So we've got Sylvia Plath's The Colossus, definite keep. Sylvia Plath's Ariel, definitely going to keep. A collection of Sylvia Plath's poems as chosen by Carol Ann Duffy. Also going to keep. Can you get a sense of the person I was when I was like 15 or 16? Considering we've just gone from Dan and Phil book to Sylvia Plath. I feel like this is more of an expose than any other, you know, lore I could out about myself. Selected poems of Emily Dickinson. I wrote my A-level coursework on her and Sylvia Plath, but I have always had a soft spot for Emily Dickinson. Who Says You Can't Play Songs About Death on Hospital Radio, a collection by Caitlin Thornley. She is a poet that I followed on Instagram for a really long time. This was her debut collection, and it was good fun from what I remember. Bargain Bin Rom-Com by Lena Norms. I read this quite recently and really enjoyed it. A collection of First World War poems from the front. I got this when I visited the Imperial War Museum in London on a school trip. Sweet Dark by Savannah Brown. This is an excellent collection. I really, really like it. Definitely want to give it a read again. Salima Hill's The Magnitude of My Sublime Existence. This is actually one I was given as part of my prize when I was longlisted for the Foyle's Young Poet of the Year award in 2019. They gave us this massive tote bag filled with poetry-themed goodies, including like 5 different poetry collections. This was one of them. I read it quite soon afterwards. Have not read it since, but would very much like to go back to. Stone Age by Jen Hadfield. I read this pretty recently, either within the last year or 2 years. Really, really good collection. Absolutely loved it. Ilya Kaminsky's Deaf Republic. This was one I also got from Foyle's. Really, really good. Odes to Lithium by Shira Ehrlichman. I read this for the Sunshine Readathon as well, and it's really, really good. And then we come to my lovely, incredibly colourful wedge of 14 poems. I've been subscribed to them since issue 4, I believe, and have maintained my subscription for the past 3 years or so. They're excellent gifts as well, I should say that, because these are tiny little slim volumes of queer poetry, really, really cheap. You can buy a single edition, or you can buy a subscription for a year, which gets you 4 issues. Support small queer businesses, support queer writers, support poets in particular. So we have done my first bookshelf. Oh my god. I've done pretty well. But now we are on to the next bookshelf. Oh my god, I've still got one more bookshelf to go. Okay, I'm going to take a brief break and I will see you in a moment. Right, first bookcase down, time to do the second. I have so many more books around me this time, or at least it feels that way. God, why do I own so many books? Time to get rid of some more books. So, let's start with the things that were on the very, very top shelf next to my Cards Against Humanity games. First of all, we have the Pseudonymous Bosch Secret series. I really, really liked these when I reread them over the pandemic. I'm gonna keep them. I reread these very, very recently to try and get myself out of my reading slump. This is the 13 series by Michelle Harrison. They were really, really good. Better than I reviewed them as being when I did a reread over the pandemic, but yeah, these I'm 100% keeping. However, I'm gonna get rid of One Wish, which is the spin-off prequel story, because it annoyed me enough when I did the reread that I didn't bother reading it this time, and so she goes. Oh boy! Right on top, we have Scythe, Thunderhead, The Toll, and Gleanings. Now, the Scythe series is one I have loved for a very, very long time, and so it is without a shadow of doubt I'm keeping these. But I need you to know, dear YouTube audience, if it is in fact that you differ from my friend group, I need you to know that I love the Scythe series so much that I read this series aloud to my university friends over Discord calls and managed to successfully get them hooked on the Scythe series as well. So this is no longer just my random, like, mediocre YA series that I'm obsessed with. It is now our mediocre series that we're obsessed with. Okay, then we have this, Tales from Shakespeare, Lamb. Oh, this was a book my granny gave me. This is in fact retellings of all of Shakespeare's stories in prose, much shorter than the originals. Really, really nice. Have I ever read this? Do I ever intend to read this? Probably not, but it is a really, really nice old hardcover, and like it's got sprayed edges, which for an old book feels very rare, and these beautiful swirly end pages, so I'm going to keep it. Oh no. And then we've got the Garvey Smith Mysteries by Simon Mason, which I read Running Girl years back and absolutely loved it, and since then have been looking for more. There were then 2 more books. I believe the series has been stopped there, which is a real shame. I've only read each of these once, but I really enjoyed them when I did, so again, I'm going to keep them. This is my redemption. Shadow and Bone series by Leigh Bardugo. I love Six of Crows, however these, mid. They're so mid, Your Honour, so I'm never gonna read these again. The Heartstopper... Stoffer? I hardly know. God damn it, this is breaking my brain. The Heartstopper graphic novels. I absolutely adore Heartstopper, as does everyone and their mum. Of course I'm keeping these. Oh man, how well can I lift these? Just about done it. These are the Adrian Mole series, which I own in 2 different covers. I really like the Adrian Mole series, but there are individual books within the series that aren't quite as good as the others. But I also know my likelihood that I will want to do a full reread if I'm going to reread them. So it's, as much as I would probably want to pick and choose individual volumes, so I have to keep all of... I'm sorry, unfortunately I am gonna have to keep all of them. I don't know who I'm apologising to. I guess myself for thinking I had slightly more self-restraint than this, but alas, she falls. As I Descended by Robin Talley. This is a Macbeth retelling set in a girls' high school with lesbians. It was so good when I read it. Definitely want to reread. Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. This is an excellent book with fantastic representation and that deals with mental illness, but in men, which is quite rare. I really enjoyed this when I read it, desperately want to reread again, so definitely keeping it. So last time I went through my books to get rid of them, I decided to keep all 4 of my Sarah Moore Fitzgerald books on the basis that I definitely wanted to reread them all. Have I done a reread? No, I have not. So The Apple Tart of Hope by Sarah Moore Fitzgerald is one of my favourite books ever. I will be keeping this probably forever. But then these 3, A Very Good Chance and The Last of Real Things, I did very much enjoy, however I only read them once and then shelved them. A Strange Kind of Brave I read and then went, I am too old for this style of book. This simply does not work for me anymore. So I think I'm going to get rid of all 3. Oh, this is where the self-restraint is coming in. Next one is I Stop Somewhere by T.E. Carter. I read this when I was quite young, by which I mean like 14, 15. It is about rape and murder, and it is graphic about it. As much as I was very impressed by how it handled all this and what a good book it was, I don't think I can ever stomach reading this again because it was heavy. So, no, wrong side. Good book, but not for me to keep. Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. This again, really good book, dealt heavily with rape and sexual assault. I appreciated it. Did I enjoy it? No. Am I ever going to want to read this again? No. Another Place by Matthew Crowe. I remember this really affecting me when I read it because it is about a girl with very severe mental illness, specifically depression and anxiety. And at that point in time, I was a sad girl with anxiety. I'm now just a girl with anxiety. But I remember this hitting me in a certain way, and so I would be really interested in rereading it. The problem is I've also been saying that for a lot of years and haven't done it. However, I am thinking this could be the summer I do, so you live another day, another place. The Deep by River Solomon. This is about mermaids, but specifically mermaids with generational racial trauma. It was really good when I read it. Am I gonna want to read it again? You're maybe pile. You're maybe pile. No, you're not maybe pile. The conclusion I'm gonna come to is that I'm gonna keep you, so I'm gonna just stick to my guns, say it off the bat. Right. Semi-definitive list of worst nightmares by Crystal Sutherland. This is one of my favourite books ever. I'm definitely due a reread of it. I haven't read it in a couple of years. I love this book. You are staying forever. Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. I saw her give a talk about this book when they did a re-release because of the fact that it had been out for so long that some of the data had changed. This talks about the ways in which the world is not built for women. It's got quite a limited perspective in that it does not address trans issues or non-binary positions on any of these matters, but it is still very good for righteous anger and for having all of the stats to back up the ways in which the world sucks if you are not born and perceived as male. So Am I going to want to read it again? Probably not. Is it good to have a hold of? Yes, and I do have a thingy in the front from her that says be visible. I'm going to keep it. Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, by the author who wrote The Yellow Wallpaper, which everyone seemed to read for school, apart from me. I've actually not read it. This, however, is another very, very interesting short story by her that still makes me laugh when I think about it now. I've only read it once. I want to read it again. I'm gonna keep it. Young Romantics by Daisy Hay. This is the biography of the Romantic poets that I read during the pandemic. It took me months to get through, but it was really, really interesting. I very much enjoyed it, and definitely one I would like to keep having on my shelf as a reference point. Oh my god. Being attacked by Adrian Mole. He wouldn't have the stones for that. Sky Steppers by Catherine Rundell. This was the World Book Day mini prequel to Rooftoppers, which we will definitely be coming to in one of these subsequent piles. It's cute. I like it. I'm keeping it. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I was very, very late on the draw with this one. I read this maybe only a couple of years ago. It is obviously a spectacular book. However, is it one that I want to return to? I don't think so. I got all I needed from it the first time. I already remember the plot pretty well because it is generally very well culturally known, so I don't think I need my copy anymore. Finding Your Feet by Cass Lennox. I reread this earlier in the year and I still absolutely love this. The Gifted, the Talented and Me by William Sutcliffe. I really enjoyed it at the time. It was really funny, but I don't think I'm ever going to want to read this again. So we've got some little ones down here. What are these little ones? New Testament and the Psalms. We got given these for free at my school when I was in year 7. Was this a countrywide thing in the UK? I think it probably was. Anyway, I'm not religious in the slightest. I've never read this. I do remember kids in my year tearing out the pages, rolling them up, chewing them, spitting them at people, or in fact smoking them, which I don't think is what God intended. Shakespeare Daily Gem Book. This was a gift from one of my university friends. I now can't remember which one. It gives you a little snippet of Shakespeare every single day for a year. Lovely. Keeping it. This is my very old copy of Macbeth I picked up in a second-hand bookshop at some point. The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. Really didn't get along with The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This one did take me a bit more, and I thought I might want to reread at some point, but I'll be honest, I really don't think I'm going to. Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. Remember when this was like the only gay book that existed and now I can't move for all the queer books I own? I'd be interested to reread this. Do I actually want to keep it? Do I actually want to read it? No. So it probably ought to go then. One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This, I really, really like this. I'm gonna keep it. Here she is. Rooftoppers by Catherine Rundell. Instant keep. Apple and Rain by Sarah Crossan. Am I going to reread it? Probably not. Oh, I want to keep it. I feel bad for getting rid of that one. It's necessary. I'm clearing space for books I love and obsess over. Beautiful Broken Things with this insanely holographic cover, and Fierce Fragile Hearts, both by Sarah Bernard. These broke my little heart and fixed them again. Broke it, fixed it. In that order very specifically. I will definitely reread these and cry over them. Fire Colour 1 by Jenny Valentine. There is just this flavour to it. I'm keeping it. Who Put This Song On by Morgan Parker. I really enjoyed this when I read it like a year or two ago, and I have thought about it. However, I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. This I don't think is one that I would come back to. It's a good experience in and of itself, but not one I'm going to want to return to. I'll show you its lovely rainbowy holographic cover one last time. Let's say goodbye. Summerbird Blue by Kemi Dawn Bowman. It was a really good book, but again, not one I'm going to want to reread. All of the Above by Juno Dawson. Juno Dawson when she was in her problematic era. This is not her best writing, these are not her best characters. Did I enjoy it and appreciate it for what it was? Yes. Am I going to want to reread it though? No, very unlikely. Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell, which I am absolutely keeping. That is such a good book. Penultimate stack. Here we go. All About Mia by Lisa Williamson. I got this because I'd really enjoyed The Art of Being Normal, read it once, and I don't remember enough about it, and I haven't felt the inclination to reread. With The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, this was a really, really good book when I read it. Am I going to want to reread though? That's the question. I'm not sure, but this was such a good book that I think I'm going to hang on to it. You Should See Me in a Crowd by Leah Johnson. This was such a good book, very iconic when it came out. However, again, am I going to reread? Definitely not for this one. Some things you just need to read once and they've done it for you. That was one of them. Oh, here we go. Orphan Monster Spy and Devil Darling Spy by Matt Killeen. I really, really enjoyed these, and I am still on the lookout to see if there is a third book ever coming, because I can well believe this does not end with Devil Darling Spy. Keeping. Ace of Spades by Frida Abike Iamida. Such a good book. Definitely keeping, because I will 100% come back to this again at some point. Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is a really, really nice paperback copy. Do I ever want to reread The Handmaid's Tale? I don't think I will. Mary Beard, Women and Power, a Manifesto. This has very, very cool holographic-y covers. This I got because it is an excellent reference book for feminism, and actually I think it will probably do me much better now that I'm at university than it ever would have done when I actually got it in sixth form, so keeping it for referencing purposes. A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I, again, read this well before I would have needed it. Do I want to keep it? I don't think I'm ever going to reread it, so no. Cybernetic Tea Shop by Meredith Katz. I really, really like this. This is a queer aspec romance between a cyborg AI robot and the woman who repairs her. It was really, really cute. Am I going to reread it? I'm not sure, but because it was so up my alley in that regard, I'm going to hang on to it. Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This is such a good kids book. Yeah, I'm going to keep it. Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. This was, again, really, really good when I read it. Am I going to want to reread? I don't think I know with enough certainty, but because it was good, I'm gonna... No, I'm flicking through it and I'm just there going, I remember what it was about, and again, good once, happy to be done with. Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This was one of the first adult fiction books I read. I think I probably will want to return to this actually, because I read it as a first foray into adult fiction, so I'll keep a hold on it. Final stack. And this is the main reason I needed to go through all of my books, because this is the stack of all the things that I read that I actually did not have space to shelve as intended. Emma by Jane Austen in a lovely Penguin Clothbound Classics edition. Obviously, I'm going to keep it. We Play Ourselves by Jen Silverman. This was such a good book. I got it as part of the Rarebird Book Club subscription I did last year, and it genuinely changed aspects of the way I think. So 100% keeping. Wilder Girls by Rory Power. My only inclination to keep this is because I hated it so viscerally that I kind of want to reread and see how much more I can hate it. No, we're not living for spite these days. We live for hope and we live for bravery, as Gender Source put it. So, When You Were Everything by Ashley Woodfolk. This is a book about an actual friendship breakup, which is a topic I'm very, very passionate about. Ooh, am I going to want to reread though? I'm not sure, and again, because it was so up my alley, I'm going to hang on to it. Book Lovers by Emily Henry, another of my Rarebird book options. I liked this, I didn't love it. Would I want to come back to it? Probably. Baker Thief by Claudia Arsenault. This is so cute, this is so nice. Of course I'm going to keep it, of course. And in the same vein, Common Bonds, edited by Claudia Arsenault. This is just aromantic short stories prioritising like queer platonic relationships, family bonds, just sexual dynamics. It's so good. Definitely keeping. And recommending actively to everyone I speak to. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I actually liked this when I read it, which I believe was quite a controversial opinion, and I completely agree with the people who say that this is, in many points, an inaccurate depiction of depression and ways that one can get through depression. However, it did hit right for me. Will I reread it though? No. So, goodbye. Don't Feed the Trolls by Erica Kudish. This was a really interesting look at internet culture, and specifically trolling and fandoms. Definitely want to reread at some point. You Are Staying. Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is one of the few things I read for leisure over Easter this year, and oh my god, is this one of the best things I've ever read. Greek mythology, World War I, like Aphrodite telling the story of soldiers and their lovers, and it's just, oh my god, is it good. Please read it. I'm keeping it, because I will be reading it again. This was the other thing I read over Easter. Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. Really, really good. It made me cry so much. Gave me so many thoughts and feelings. 100% keeping. I want this to break my brain harder the next time I get to it. Lycanthropy, Another Chronic Illnesses by Kristen O'Neill. I lent this to one of my university friends, the lovely Alfie, and it is a book we are now both equally obsessed with. It's just fantastic. 100% keeping. And Solitaire. This may be the one Alice Oseman book that I get rid of. I know, unexpected, unheard of, but I kind of didn't gel with it, I'm not gonna lie, or at the very least it hit me at a point at which I recognised it for all the ways in which it reflected what a bad person I was at Tori's age in this. But then it would leave such a gap in my Alice Oseman collection. Fuck it, I'm keeping it. I've been so good with getting rid of things. She can stay. Okay, we are readdressing the ones that I said were maybes, so I'm going to flip them over and go from the bottom. Phantom Tollbooth. This has enough childhood nostalgia attached to it and was good enough that I'm going to keep it. Star of Kazan, again, I really, really did love when I was a kid. Likelihood I come back to that for some nostalgia, strong. Dragonfly Pool, I don't remember enough about, however, so you are going to go. Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas, I think is going to go. I just don't think I'm ever going to be inspired enough to pick it back up again, remembering what I do about how, like, painful the first read of it was. Silence is Goldfish. I'm not going to read it again. She goes. I've done it. I've done it. I've actually done it. I've gone through every single book that I own. Every single one. Actually, that's not true. I've gone through all the books that I own and have shelved, which means I've gone through everything that I have read. I have a trolley of unread books just over there, the one that you saw me make at some point last year, but I'm not going through those because I intend to read all of them. Oh my god. I think it's time that I do a little count up and I can tell you exactly how many books I am keeping versus getting rid of. I can now give you the stats, having done a big load of counting. So, from my tall bookshelf in the corner, I am keeping 47 books and 22 poetry books. And from the one in the corner, I am keeping 67 books. Meaning that I'm keeping well over 100 things. I think that's fine. That's an acceptable amount, I think, because the amount I'm getting rid of is 24 from that one and 27 from that one. So it's more than 50 I'm getting rid of, more than 100 I'm keeping. That feels like progress. That feels like progress to me. I'm quite proud of myself for this. But yeah. Oh my god, was that work. I guess all that remains to say is thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting seeing me go through genuinely everything I own, so you've had a very, very wide view of my book taste from the ages of about 13 up to now. Although I have to say everything from about 13 is now going, so please do give this video a like if you did indeed like it. Comment down below if you have the number to hand how many books you own, because I think 100 is actually pretty, you know, reserved for someone who reads as much as I used to and is endeavouring to read as much in future. But I don't know, let me know. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe to see when I make more nonsensical videos like this one. And now it is time for me to go and reshelve all of these. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.